My name is Charles Brown III, aka CB3. I'm a portfolio manager and financial educator, and I've been an investor for more than 30 years. As a portfolio manager, it's my job to keep our clients calm during difficult market periods. I did it in the crash of 2008. I did it in 2009 and 10 as a commentator for Fox News. And I did it in 2018 during the trade war scare. But 2020 was different. The pandemic brought a new intensity of uncertainty to all of us. When I began researching this week's show, I asked, how can I encourage them financially this week? How can I help them make their week more successful? That's why CB3 Live exists. We've been on 2 platforms in 2 cities with the goal of providing financial truth and a sense of calm about what's happening right now. Every week, I look forward to providing financial peace of mind to my clients and listeners. It's for this reason that it's a privilege every single time I start a broadcast by saying, from COVID, U.S. policy, and world economics to clarity. This is CB3 Live. Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, May 6th, live from Nashville. I'm Charles Brown, portfolio manager with CB3 Financial. We are so glad you are here. In addition to CB3 Live tonight, this is also the National Day of Prayer. So I want to just give you a heads up that at the end of this program, we're going to have a few moments of prayer. You actually can type in the chat box, not now, but later in the broadcast, and tell me some things you have on your mind, and we're going to pray. I just think it's an important thing. I never thought I'd see the state of the country just is in such a dismal, angst-filled place that it is today. And I literally had to change my thumbnail because I changed my headline story tonight based on the news came out about the vaccine intellectual property crisis that I'm calling it. And then we're going to do a portfolio review. We've got a lot going on. You might grab a pencil and paper. I've never said that before either, but there's just a whole lot going on we need to talk about. If you're new to the program, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the little bell and you'll be notified when we go live on Thursdays and when I upload on Mondays. You can also follow me on Twitter. I tweet every single day, sometimes twice a day. Follow me also on Facebook and LinkedIn. Tell your friends, tell your family. We've got a growing group here of people who care about this country and who care about their portfolios, and that's why we're here. Investing in You is my opening monologue, talking about a summary of the things that I see that are going on that are especially relevant to you, and then we dig down into our weekly segments. And definitely what's on my mind right now is the U.S. backing a waiver of intellectual property protection for COVID-19 vaccines. The Biden administration said that they favored this during the election season. Okay? I didn't think it was going to happen, but now we're seeing that the Biden administration does support the World Trade Organization aimed at speeding up the global vaccine production. Well, there's several problems with this. First of all, there's no right of any government to steal patents or thwart them to the point where companies are not able to collect on them. And it's actually worse than that, as you'll see on the next slide. So here's what they're saying. And granted, this is straight from the Washington Post. So if you see some slightly incendiary language here, this isn't mine. I'm simply quoting from the Washington Post, which is the second most liberal behind the New York Times publication in America. So on Wednesday, the Biden administration threw its support behind a controversial proposal to waive intellectual property protections for coronavirus vaccines, with liberals framing it as a necessary bid to speed the shots to billions in the developing world, while the drug industry, of course, warned of devastating effects to vaccine production. Let's walk through this. First of all, how do you just nationalize a vaccine patent? The word nationalize means that a government comes in and takes over. So imagine you have a company and you want to expand to China and you build a factory and it grows and you're having great production and great success and making money. And one day you wake up and the company or the building itself is surrounded by the Chinese army. They just nationalized your business. It's theirs. Now, you can say, well, this isn't right. We've got international law, and you can, but when there are 15 tanks and 6,000 troops outside, none of that matters. And what we have going on right now is these companies who were incentivized to produce vaccines. You don't make things better for other places in the world by bringing down the country that actually created these vaccines. They were incentivized by the previous administration, and to Joe Biden's credit, has not messed it up. He has at least expanded on the number of vaccines. Whether or not you want to take the vaccine is not an issue at this moment. The fact is that people that want to take it can take it here. And I feel badly that other countries didn't know how to incentivize their own medical companies, not just for producing the vaccine, but for the general economies. Okay, you can't bring down the U.S. to try to make another country stronger. That's just not the way it works. And here we have the U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai saying the United States will now move forward with international discussions to waive the protections. So if it starts with vaccines, what if the state of Tennessee were to come in and say to me, if you want to get your license renewed, we don't want you investing in any companies that support pro-life movements or something. Now, that's not going to happen in Tennessee, but it certainly could have happened in Illinois. You might be saying, well, I thought securities were regulated by, the federal government. Well, that's true, but we also have state entities. So this is where government can come in and basically mess with the free enterprise system. There are more problems than this. You might say, I'm seeing in the press today, I don't know if you guys have seen these articles. It's the filthy rich capitalists that are complaining. They should be willing to give this up. There's more to it than that. Okay, what does that mean? What this means is, let's say they take these patents and say, now they're just public domain. Okay, are they going to force the American companies, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, to produce them? No, they're probably just going to release the patents into the public domain and let the local companies produce them. What if they don't manufacture them to the same high standards as American standards? And now we have people in Laos and China and India suing the American companies who've just had their property stolen from them, suing them with international law because that vaccine didn't work here, because it wasn't manufactured up to the standard that we have here in America. This is a colossal problem. And the reason that I am really angry about this, and I'm telling you about this, is because 3 or 4 months ago, someone asked the greatest question of all time, which is, what is the biggest concern you have about investing post-COVID? We even created a segment called Investing Post-COVID. And my biggest concern is not balance sheets of companies or earnings reports or PE ratios or, whether the stock market's going to have a pullback. The biggest concern is the actual playing field, the socioeconomic fabric of this country going to be modified so greatly that it becomes impossible for me to, for instance, just decide to buy a big pharma company and wondering if it's going to be nationalized or their product is going to be nationalized. And overnight, they dropped 20%. Now, the pharmas were down some today, not a whole lot. But that's because I think people are still just in shock that this could even be proposed. So I just want to be sure you understand what's at risk here. This is a financial program. This is not a political program. But as your financial advisor for many of you and your financial educator for the rest of you, this is a big deal. And we have to pay attention to it. We have to. All right. In the midst of all this, GDP, 6.4%, just on track, exactly what was predicted. It was expected to be 6.4. It came out at 6.4. It's a great number. This is, of course, for the first quarter. We look back a quarter. As soon as the second quarter is done on June 30, we'll start getting numbers for the second quarter, which I expect to be stronger. On top of that, U.S. household income surged by 21%. 21%. Now, some of this is the incentive checks that are coming. Some of it is savings. All right. But this is the largest monthly increase since government records began being kept when I was 4 years old in 1959. This is at the end of a pandemic, just coming out of a recession. No other country in the world can make these claims. No other country. All right. Now, interesting that, as we'll get to in the policy section, and I've been talking about this for weeks now, that the Biden administration wants to fund their programs by taking it from the wealthiest Americans. Well, the wealthiest Americans just got almost $200 billion richer during the first 100 days of the Biden administration. So maybe those rich folks are saying, thank you, Biden administration. The reality is, it's just not the presidential administrations. I know President Trump took total credit, or almost total credit, for the growth that happened during his administration, and he did deserve some of it. But the truth is, we are in a secular bull market that is not going to stop at anything. It can be pushed around, it can be thwarted, but it's not going to be stopped. The vaccine rollout, and again, it doesn't matter whether you've taken it or not, it is still putting a peace of mind for people, whether they've taken it or not. They see other people have taken it. It's giving them confidence to pick up the phone, call and make airline reservations, to make reservations in Disneyland, to go on a tour and stay in resorts and get back to life as normal. This country has been shut down so long. All right. So despite this drumbeat for the rich to pay more taxes, these top 100 people added $200 billion to their. I think that's poetic justice, folks. Sorry. In the meantime, the Dow. Now, the Dow was the laggard last year. The reason I'm sort of championing the Dow this year is because it's the Rodney Dangerfield of indexes, okay? Last year it struggled. This year it's on fire. It hit its 22nd record close yesterday, and I just inserted this slide a few hours ago. Today hit yet another record. Thus, this makes the most highs in a calendar year, and we're barely in May, guys, since 2017, when 71 highs were occurred. Then you have to go back to 2013. We're going to break that record too. Basically, folks, the bull market rages on. This is the segment I told you about. It's usually at the end of the show, but I have to put it here because something that really disturbed me happened today. And I have to share it with you because I think it has implications for investing. This isn't it. It doesn't really have anything to do with Donald Trump. He's the indirect object here. But when Facebook or all these social medias can cancel anybody, now they've canceled President Trump, they've canceled other people, and the they I'm speaking to are the elite mega companies that think if you don't believe their particular political ideology, that you can be silenced. And I absolutely abhor this in America. I absolutely abhor it. It just totally bothers me, and it ought to be outrageous to you guys too. We'll see if he's really permanently banned. Obviously, I'm sure you've read he started his own network. We really have two competing platforms in America right now. There's nothing about this that's just, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's got me so upset. This came into my inbox today. It's the only email I'm going to share with you guys. Quote, Donald Trump is a mentally ill man-child, absolute worst idiot to ever enter our government. I've hoped since day one that he has a massive heart attack. Thank God he is gone, and he's permanently gone. Well, that of course doesn't mean he's dead. It just means he's been banned. Now, I replied to this person, and they got even more vitriolic. You would think that this was a disgruntled viewer on this program, maybe someone that's read my writings and just vehemently disagrees with me. Unfortunately, folks, that's not the case. This is someone that I have known since I was 14 years old. And in fact, I played in a band with him. I wrote music with him. I have his paintings in my home, which I had purchased for him later in life. In the history books, we all read about, the North and the South. It pitted brother against brother and uncle against uncle and father against mother. And we can look back at that and go, that must have been a tough time. Folks, it's here. And then for a financial show, I have to tell you that is my biggest concern. As an American, obviously, I have greater concerns besides just the financial impact. But I don't have the prowess or the ability to really comment too much on anything beyond the financial side of this. And I can tell you that the environment that I'm seeing, if it doesn't correct itself, is not going to be good for us going forward. At the end of this broadcast, as I told you earlier, we're going to pray, or at least I am. You're welcome to stay on till the very end, or if you want to sign off, I understand. It's okay. We have people of different faiths on this broadcast, and you can pray however you want to pray. And I actually have something I'm going to read to you that's going to be my answer to what's happening right here. All right, I'm going to pause just for a second before I go into COVID because I want to see if there's anything going on here in the chat I need to be aware of. But you guys be thinking about what you might want to say here at the end. If you've got something you want me to pray about. Hey, Martha from Michigan. Hey, from upstate New York, Andre. Hey, Nellie from Atlanta. There we have it, the beginning of potential starters. Socialists. Yeah, I'm not gonna give in to that, Andre. I hear you, buddy, but I'm gonna call it like I see it. I want to be really careful here. I am not personally attacking my friend who wrote me that, and in fact, I replied back and said, I can't believe this. We've known each other since we were in our middle teens. And you haven't talked to me in 2 years. How come you're just blasting me with this out of nowhere? And then attacking me, which I didn't put on the screen, for my beliefs. And it's not that I think Donald Trump's the greatest guy. I do think his policies helped America. I believe he loves America. I believe he has serious personal issues in the way he conducts his behavior. And I have called him out on this program saying that the Republicans lost the Georgia Senate races, both of them, because of Donald Trump's lack of becoming involved. Because he was too wrapped up in his own loss. So I call things like I see them. But I want you to know that I am here. I am your advocate. I am your financial advocate. And when I see things that are getting in the way of the potential that could be reached by my client base and the people that come to me to be educated about financial matters, I am going to speak up. And I hear you, Nellie. It has the makings of another civil war. I've actually commented on that, and I hope that we don't end up that way. I'm going to do my best to contribute to the positiveness, and I have something, again, I'm going to read to you at the end of the program. I hope you'll stay for that. So upset because the email was in opposition to my personal opinion? No. I'm upset because of the way that it was presented. It was a personal degradation against a former president of the United States. Look, I didn't agree with anything Barack Obama did, but I did not refer to him in a disparaging manner. I didn't refer to him in a snide manner. I'm respectful of the office and even respectful of the person. He seems like he was a pretty good dad, but his policies were not good for America. And Joe Biden's policies are not good for America. And it was the retort after that, Tommy. Thanks, a good question. It was just sad. It was disappointing. We can't conduct ourselves as Americans this way. Because it was vitriolic is correct, Nellie. So guys, I'm talking about COVID, and I'm tired of talking about COVID. I called the high in COVID January 15 or 16. By the end of that month, I was saying that's it. It's done, and I was correct, and others have said it too. I'm not a genius. I'm just calling it out. The only reason I'm mentioning COVID still is because we're dealing with an aftermath, and we want to learn from what we blew as a country, because they're going to read about this in the history books and go, what in the world? What were you guys thinking? So I want you to look at this chart. 51 million vaccinations from Pfizer, 42 million from Moderna, only 8 million from Johnson. Part of that is because Johnson was suspended because 6 people got blood clots. Are you kidding me? Do you see any non-American companies in this list? Did I forget to mention that Novavax is on here, and they don't have a release yet. The FDA hasn't approved it, but there are 20-something more American companies working on the next generation of COVID treatment, which will most likely be wrapped into an overall flu shot that we've all been getting every year, at least those of us at our age, my age, okay? So it was a very different America in the 1950s. I read this, and I just condensed it into one slide here. But in 1957, we rose to this challenge of the Asian flu. We had stoicism, we had a high tolerance for risk, and I understand we were coming out of World War II. It was a baby boom. People were more confident. But today we're just scared. We're just scared. And I think those in big government took advantage of that. And it was not to our advantage. And the history books are going to reflect that we did not handle this pandemic the way that we should have, in the sense that it never needed to shut down the country. Why do I say that? More than 1/3 of small businesses that were open prior to the pandemic are now closed. I'm going to read that again, and I'm going to ask you to read it out loud so that you really imbibe what this means. More than 1/3 of small businesses in the United States that were open prior to the pandemic are now closed. Some of these businesses were begun with someone cashing out a 401k, opening a restaurant, and 2 weeks later, the government shut it down. And their life savings were wiped out. More than one case, more than one state, more than one city. 1/3 of small businesses wiped out because of how we handled this pandemic. The New York Fed, so we know there are 12 Fed districts, right? He's saying, look, we only expect 3%, this is a quote, of businesses currently closed to even reopen. So 97% of the ones that are closed aren't going to reopen. And we expect these reopening businesses to rehire about 35%. What happens to the 65? They're still on unemployment. They're still on the dole. You remember last week at the very end of the show when I said there's 2 ways to enslave a person? You can make them work without pay, and you can pay them without allowing them to work. And they become enslaved to a dependent government to pay them. And that's what we have now. Last week, if you guys were watching, I mentioned that I tried to get an Uber ride. No cars available on my phone. I asked the guy when he finally showed up 35 minutes later, what is this? And he said, well, people are staying home. They don't want to work. Even here in Tennessee, I would have expected that in Illinois, but not here in Tennessee. 4% of the workers of the currently closed businesses will eventually be rehired. What happens to the other 96? What happens to the other 96? I'd sure like to know. It concerns me. I'm going to take a break and look at the chat here. We get into the political side. Nellie, daughter in New York. Yeah, she lives in California. So excited to be able to go out and have a beer without wearing a mask. Yeah, I'm sure it felt weird. Internet arguments never end well, and that's true, Doc. And that's why I'm doing this live and in person. I'm not typing anything. I'm talking to you guys. Michigan lost 200,000 small businesses. That number just knocks the breath out of me, Martha. San Francisco last week, one of the most famous restaurants, Fisherman's Wharf. Yeah, and that's known nationally. Shut down, 4 homeless people residing on the sidewalk. That's California. And that's why Gavin Newsom, even as liberal and as totally one-sided politically, ideologically as California is realizing they got to get rid of Gavin Newsom. So, policy. Biden's economic plan would redistribute trillions of dollars and expand government. Guys, there's just no good outcome when government grows. The money is taken from those who have it and given to those who don't. That doesn't mean that we should not provide. This country has always had a safety net of some kind. But when it is mandated, when the government comes in and takes what you have, that is communism. If it can happen to us individually, it can happen to businesses, as I mentioned earlier, where they get nationalized. If I have to be concerned as your portfolio manager, where is this company going to get nationalized more likely? Is this industry going to get nationalized? Do I have to avoid entire industries or entire sectors because I have concerns that my stock, I could wake up one day and the stock has a zero value because now the government takes it over? Yeah, that really makes it tough. You don't think it can happen? They didn't think it could happen in Venezuela either. I did a special feature on Venezuela about a year ago. The second most affluent country in the Western Hemisphere behind the U.S. And what are they now? A cesspool. An absolute cesspool. The president thinks that we're going to help the middle class at the expense of the business and the wealthy. Can you just show me Biden administration any other economy in the world where this has been successful. I'm all for not reinventing the wheel, okay? I'm all for going out and find something that's working and then doing it. I mean, I didn't totally reinvent how to manage money, folks. I followed some really, really smart people. I implemented some things that I thought worked for my particular client base, but I didn't reinvent it. Okay, just show me another place in the history of human existence where this has worked. It hasn't. This is a power grab. The American Families Plan, all that. Where are we going to get the money for this, guys? The proposal is being referred to as an investment in the human infrastructure. Okay, why is that not being done at the local level? If you're going to spend all this money, send it to the states, send it to the local areas, and let the money be spent where it matters most, in the communities. Why won't the federal government do that? Because if they do that, then they are ceding, C-E-D-E, control. This is a control play. This is not about, oh, we're going to take money from the rich. We know what's best. You don't know anything. And I could have said this about Republican administrations too. The federal government has no business trying to regulate what is done in our states and communities. You collect the tax revenue and then send it back out and leave our businesses alone. Leave our economy alone. Protect our borders. I'm trying to manage money here. I'm trying to give everyone, as you well know, the highest risk-adjusted return that you can make. But I've got more risk now, as of today, that I really don't want to have to spend time analyzing because I don't know. I understand market risk. I've been doing this 30 plus years, but I don't know when a government's going to say, you know, we're just going to take away your patents. Yeah, appreciate you doing it. Thanks. It would be paid for, this American Families Plan, by taxing the wealthiest 1%. Okay, we've seen this before. Roosevelt did it. Second most liberal administration in history. The most liberal one is currently in office. Doubling the capital gains tax. Okay, that's going to trickle down to all of us, folks. If you think it's just going to affect the 1%, it's not. It never works that way, and it's never temporary. Of course, in the wording is, this is just going to be temporary. The White House has portrayed this. This is from whitehouse.gov. As a Robin Hood style. Why would you ever use that as an adjective trying to appeal to people's hearts? Robin Hood stole. Yeah, it's a cool folk tale, but he stole. You can't build trust. You can't build a country on thievery. You can't do it. So a lot would need to be collected to pay for these huge infrastructure proposals. $4 trillion. I mean, we're throwing around trillion. It was Ross Perot had said $1 billion here, $1 billion there. You know, sooner or later, you're talking about real money. Now we've added 3 zeros to it. $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. You know, sooner or later, we're talking about real money. You add all these up and it's $6 trillion that we don't have. We already have a massive deficit. A massive deficit. Before I get into the world economy, let me check the chat here. All right. I was in the restaurant today. Had one reason to work because they can't find any help. Tommy, I had to cut that from my show tonight. But you guys remember the McDonald's? They're paying $50. They're now paying $75 for interviews. You can just come in, you get a meal, you get $75 just for showing up. And they still don't have enough people in Florida. It's crazy. Whenever the fourth estate picks one political side, it's an uphill battle for the other side. Yeah, love that, Keith. That's exactly right. All right, guys, let's move on to the world economy. So this is pretty good news here. I know that you guys are, those of you that are clients are noticing this year is not quite as rock and roll as it was last year in portfolio returns. But let's walk through this. Let's look at the performance like we did a month ago. And let me explain what's going on. Okay, so year to date, Russell 13.5, Dow, S&P neck and neck. And in fact, this actually narrowed today. I didn't get today's performance in here because I was busy trying to update the program for tonight. NASDAQ just getting kicked. And last year, if you remember, go back and watch my shows in October, November. I kept saying the NASDAQ is like so far ahead, they're going to look like the enemy. The other indices are trailing so far behind. Well, it's the opposite this year. So what does this mean? This is my argument for a secular bull market. Okay, this is all right now. We can't win every single month. But if you're an NFL team owner, and you guys have a 5-11 record, 16 games, you're not happy about it. But if the rest of the league is having record revenues, you're probably feeling pretty good about things because at least it means people are watching and maybe next year you'll be better. Well, that's kind of what's going on right now. And you'll see when we get to the performance here that we're really doing just fine. This number. We are now more than 80% done with the S&P 500 earnings reports for the first quarter. Remember, we have the first quarter earnings reports and we release them in the second quarter. 87%. Historically, what's that number been? Anybody remember? 73%. We're at 87. Staggering. In green, consumer discretionary, financials, industrials, technology, communication services. 3 favorite sectors of mine are there and all even beating more than the S&P 500 is, okay? And we're more than 80% done. Guys, this is going to be a banner quarter. I have a feeling that next quarter, when we're reporting these in July and August, when we're looking back at this quarter's performance, is going to be even better. It's exciting. Record shares of companies are beating earning estimates. 22.8 have posted profits above expectations. You have to go back 11 years to see this. 2010. And why was it so good in 2010? Because we were coming out of a recession. Okay, so what are we doing right now? We're coming out of a recession and we're doing the same thing we did in 2010. This is what American businesses do. Except they didn't have a pandemic back then. They just had a vanilla recession. It was an economic one. It was big. I don't mean to downplay it. But folks, what you're seeing here is big time. This is an American success story pulling out of this the way that we are. Now, there's this old adage, I'm sure you've heard this, sell in May, go away in May, whatever it is. And every year, one person, maybe two, says to me, so why aren't we just going to cash like maybe 30%? Because to do so would be financially irresponsible, and that's my answer. Since 1971, did the research. Thank you, Tom Bowley, for giving me this research. Annualized returns of the S&P and the NASDAQ. I'm not going to read them. Just look at them on the screen. May, June, July, May, June, July. Do you want to be out of the market with those returns? I don't think so. Does it do that every year? No. But if you average it since 1971, do you want to be out of the market? No, I don't. And if I'm not out, you guys aren't out. Those of you that are clients, because you guys are mirroring what I'm doing. All right. That's good news. We're staying in. April, good month's performance. NASDAQ and S&P caught up some on the Dow. NASDAQ still behind on the year, but you can see, the Dow just kind of evened out, and yet the Dow's still hitting highs. Now, I know there's a lot of gunk on this chart, but it's important that I show you. Look at the top yellow, IWF minus IWD. What you need to remember about this is that IWF means growth. IWD means value. I know we've talked about this, but I want you to understand growth companies, Tesla, NEO, Apple, value companies, Exxon, Abbott Labs, okay, to some extent Pfizer, although they have been an anomaly this year because of their vaccine. All right, so the chart at the bottom, you see it rising there? That was the ride that we had that we did so well on because growth was beating value. My philosophy is that growth will always beat value over time. Now you can see that peaked in September, and yet we still had a really strong year. So it takes a lot for value to pull growth down, and that's what's happening right now. I do not believe that this is going to stay, and that's why I'm not making substantive changes in the strategy in our programs. That said, and you'll see in just a few slides, GI, Growth and Income Program, having a great year because of some changes we made there, highlighting a few more value stocks, okay? But we're on track for where we need to be for our growth program. Again, no, there's a lot of data. Just look at the yellow and the red here. Last year's bear market was 126 days. Oh, that sounds terrible. Okay, the longest bear market in history, 7,200 days in the Great Depression. Okay, so if you can pull out of a bear market in 126 days, if you do the math, that's 4 months. That means you have some monster traction behind you. And I want to be hitched to the wagon of the market that has monster traction behind it. I'm not going to listen to CNBC and Bloomberg tell me, oh, you need to be in cash. Oh, I'm in cash. I wish I had $1 for all the knuckleheads on the talking head shows that said, oh, we're in cash. I feel safe in cash. Well, sure you do. But you're not making anything. And the data is what we look at on this program. The data is how we make our decisions. The data is what guides me to providing the best portfolio advice I can for you guys. This is how the sectors look. So our favorite sectors, my favorite sectors, it may not be yours, but you're invested in them if you're a client. Communication services, consumer discretionary, and the technology sector. Obviously, the biggest sector of them all is technology. They've all underperformed this quarter. It's going to happen. Even Tom Brady loses a game every once in a while. And then, just for those of you that love to hate Tom Brady, he wins 3 games on the road to get to the Super Bowl, okay? And I think that that is what's going to happen here because there's just too many good earnings reports coming out in this space. And people are seeing those great reports coming out, and then the stock bounces up and they're selling, they're taking profits. It's like, it can't go any higher. I don't think so. I think you're wrong. I think it can go higher. We bought Tesla at 166. It's 7 something now, traded to 9 something. People were telling me, you doubled your money at 300. You need to get out. Well, good thing I didn't listen, wasn't it? Okay. Here's where we are performance-wise. I'm going to leave it here for a little bit. So I'm going to pause and let you look in the chat because those of you that are clients, what I've done is my 4 programs are in green, and that's the performance year to date, 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. Later this year, by the way, Capital Growth will have a 10-year track record. So the yellow column is what I use to rank them. So obviously I could rank them by year to date, 3 years, 5 years. The reason I rank them by 1 year is because that's where I'm really working. If something is not performing well 2, 3, 4 months, I don't just make a quick decision and drop something after 10 days or 10 weeks even. I'm trying to get the trailing year performance. So this means May 5th back to May 6th of last year. That's what 1 year track record is. Same with 3 years. You go back 3 years from today's date, actually yesterday's date, and 5 years. The reason there are dashes there is because strategic growth doesn't have a 5-year track record. Neither does diversified, neither does growth and income. In fact, growth and income doesn't even have a 3-year, but it will have one later this year. Strategic growth, SG, for those of you that are clients and know I use the acronym, 86% 1 year trailing, beating the Russell. Capital growth, beating the NASDAQ. So what I should have done is highlighted the S&P 500. The standard benchmark in the industry is the S&P 500. All right, so if we're beating the S&P 500, we're pretty happy. Now, we're close in diversified growth. I've made some changes there and liking where I'm seeing that going. And growth and income is never going to compete. That's why I've got the Vanguard Balance benchmark in there. That's really the benchmark that we use, which is like half bonds and half stocks. Because you're not going to have a Maserati competing with a Volkswagen and say, well, why didn't you keep up? So I'll stop talking. You guys take those numbers in. Let me look in the chat box here. So restaurant today, I already answered that with Tommy. So article listed cities that are paying people to come there and work remote. Yeah, Savannah, Georgia. Georgia's definitely in the news now, isn't it, after being so controversial there? I got to get another cough drop here while you guys are looking this over. You got questions about the performance? Ask it in the chat, guys, okay? All 8 are in play. I'm not sure what you're saying. Thanks, Martha. Appreciate that. I think actually there are 8 in play. Kay, help me out. What are you saying there? 8 what? Sorry if I've lost my train of thought here, but So the reason that I didn't mention this, growth in income at 9.7. So GI, the most conservative program we have, is the highest performer of our programs here in the first quarter. So that's kind of cool. Year to date, almost 10%, almost twice what the NASDAQ did. So anyway, that's how it works out. I try to show performance here once a month or so. Do you want more details? Just call me and I'll give you more. Okay. Economic indicators. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. So the way this works, folks, is my opening monologue just tells you what's going on and what's really important. Snapshot. Do a COVID segment. Obviously, you saw that. The political section, because policy affects portfolio. Then we look at what's going on in the market and performance, as I said, once a month. The economic indicators are looking forward. This is what's going to drive the performance in the second and third and fourth quarter, more like the third and fourth quarter. Okay, we're always looking forward with these economic indicators. And the reason that I continue to believe we're in a bull market, secular bull, is because we have empty positions. We have job vacancies for more than 3 months. And I'm just going to go through these fairly quickly because we've still got more to cover here. But if they're job vacancies, guys, and they can't be filled, just like Nellie said earlier, you're going into a restaurant, can't even find anybody working. Actually, it was Tommy said that, okay? Let's keep going here. All right, so U.S. nominal GDP, just type in so I know you've been listening for the last year. What kind of a recovery are we having? Last week, Dr. J was the one that pulled in the answer, but what do you see on the screen? We have GDP, U.S. nominal GDP at a lifetime high. We have just rocketed out of this pandemic and recession in what kind of a recovery? Okay, look at this. Strongest GDP since when? There's the average gain. Look carefully down there in gray. Average gain 2048 to 2019, 2021 just rocketing above that. It goes all the way back to 1948 since we've had this strong a GDP. Personal consumption. Type it in the chat if you see the recovery that we had in personal spending. This is individual consumer spending, okay, compared to the 2008 recovery. Look how long it took for personal consumption spending to catch up there. All right, what kind of a recovery did we have? What kind of a recovery did we have in wages and salaries? 2020, we're back to where we were. The zero, by the way, is February 19th. That was essentially the beginning of the pandemic. And I see VV, very good. Thank you. I'm glad you guys are listening. So when do you estimate coming up year to date? There's really no way to know, Nellie. I wish I could. I've been plagued with some not great calls in CG. It does happen. Last year was 62.5%. I have a feeling that we will finish the year strong. I really do. We have winners in there. We have winners in SG, different strategies. Hang in there. Yeah. And Doc, yeah, you said it again. Thank you. Prayer topic on the healing divisiveness in the nation. Thank you, Andre. And I'm going to go back and search these. You guys can start typing that in if you want to do it here. So consumer spending, 2021, just there's no data that even supports it, even beyond 1948. We're going to set new records this year because people have been buttoned down and they want to go out and they want to spend. Job postings, lifetime highs. People in the chat are saying you go in a restaurant, can't find waiters, can't find workers, can't find Uber drivers. Are you kidding me? This one guy says he's making $1,500 a month and he's only working part-time. $1,500 a week. I'm sorry, $1,500 a week. So that's $6,000. That's $72,000 for driving a car, and part-time, not so bad, right? All right, crypto, guys. This you've expressed over time. I still get people don't stop doing your crypto section. So. Doge, I got to mention, one of my close family members, I'm gonna quote him on the show here saying, you got to get into Doge. I had Bitcoin. I've got all these other coins. So yeah, I went out and bought, a bunch of thousands of Doge coins and they tripled. So I'm grateful for that. It's crazy to think that something that was started as a joke is now exchanging hands essentially at 68 cents, 63% in the past 48 hours, 131% over the past week, and 11,000% so far. Now realize when you're a small number like this, it's really easy to have some really big percentage increases, okay? So, what do I think it's going to be worth? I don't know. $60 billion today, though? I mean, something that started as a joke and people are willing to pour $60 billion into it. I'm not going to hypothesize as to whether this is wise or not. What I am going to say is that in this country, if somebody says, I'm willing to bid up on something and somebody else is willing to sell it, that's a sale. And the value is the exact price at that moment. Now, just because you can't see it and it exists as a very long computer number on a mainframe all over the world on a centralized system or not decentralized system, doesn't mean it doesn't have value, because someone has been willing to say it has value. And I want to live in a country where people have the right to do that. I don't want any government regulating what I perceive as value. I'm not talking about growth and value. I'm talking about value. If I want to buy something, it's not hurting anybody. I want to be able to buy it. Ether, the second biggest coin, now has a market cap that's bigger than Bank of America or Walt Disney. A coin that many people, including Mark Cuban, think might surpass Bitcoin. I don't know if it will. I'm just observing what's happening here. This is the wild frontier. The gold rush. Do I think it's where I put all my money? Of course not. Should you put your money in it? I'm not going to answer that for you. If customers call me, and they do, I know you guys have been waiting. I've been talking about crypto for months now, and I'm not starting a program anytime soon. It's just not ready. I literally see $100,000 swings in my portfolio. I'm not ready to introduce that to you, but you need to be aware that there is a challenge to the fiat currencies of this world by digital currencies that are controlled by individuals. And I'm in favor of that. Do not miss May 20th, 2 weeks from tonight. Leo Klinstein, a story. I've interviewed him now, and I keep taking notes, writing in the margins, and re-interviewing. Was in the Red Army and escaped and is here in America. Super successful guy, super bright guy, super patriot. Of course he is, because unlike many of us on this call tonight, he has lived in oppressed countries where they steal intellectual property. Just in case I haven't made it clear, I am really angry about that. And he's going to tell you his story, and you're going to be able to ask questions. And I hope you will. I hope you will. Leo Klinstein, May 20th, CB3 Live. All right, here's the screen. I didn't get to every single topic tonight. I usually don't, but if you have questions, type them in the chat. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to look in the chat box here. Sorry, did not come through properly. Okay, I'm still not sure about the 8, but things are always what people want to pay for them, good or bad, and that's exactly right. I mean, that's the way it should be. That's the way a free enterprise system works. When should I sell silver? Gold just hit a 4-month high today. Silver lags it. We dropped silver in DG, Martha. But if you have physical silver, certainly one of my very best and most successful trader friends is holding gobs and gobs of silver. When he sells, I'll let you know. But until then, if you have physical silver, I would hold it. Sorry, folks. Google 8 steps from capitalism to socialism. Yeah, that's a great line. And actually, I've seen that, Kay. If you guys don't know what that is, look at what Kay just typed in here. The 8 steps. This is like the 6 steps to Kevin Bacon, or, Once Away, or whatever that is. But this is 8 steps from where we are. I wouldn't even say where we are today, because we're at least 1 or maybe 2 steps into that. This is not 1776 or even 1876, after just finishing the Civil War. Okay. What I want to do right now, and again, you're welcome to stay with us. I hope you do. I've had one prayer request up here on healing the divisiveness in the nation. And I told you earlier in the broadcast that I have something I want to read to you. And you're going to hear that it's in first person. It's not me, but I'm representing an entity. When you know what that entity is, go ahead and type it in the chat box. I'll be real curious to see if it gets communicated. You may scold me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me into my very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my confidence upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I'll walk like I've got oil wells pumping right here in my living room. Just like the moon, the sun, and the certainty of tides, just like hope springing eternally, with absolute certainty, I'll rise. Do you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes? My shoulders slumping down like teardrops, weakened by a soulful cry? Does my confidence offend you? Do you really take it that hard? Well then, I'll laugh like I've got gold mines digging out in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me down with your eyes. You may wound me with your hatefulness. But for 245 years, still, I will rise. And that is my hope for this country. That is my poem for American acrimony. I want to read something tonight as we start to pray and help us to remember that our founding fathers looked to a superior being, God. This is the last few paragraphs. And I've quoted Thomas Jefferson. There were other authors, but certainly he is the one. It's on his tombstone. He didn't even mention that he was the third president of the United States. He mentioned that he was the author of the Declaration of Independence. Quote, "We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions. So we do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free, independent states, and that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states," I want to pause there, free and independent states, "they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may have right to do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." Folks, it's just astounding what it took to found this country and to get it to where it is today. We must never take for granted that what we have could be taken from us. And I mean more than just vaccine patents that could be taken, because the evil out there in this existence, whatever you want to call it, has the capacity to start small and get bigger and bigger and bigger. You've heard the metaphor of the frog boiling in the water until it was dead because it happened so slowly it didn't know. Let me check here. Prayers for those in office to unite and recognize the divisions, current state of the nation, and the important to come together for the greater good. That's beautiful, Tom. Thank you. Praying for individuals to be more humble and truthful. I love that. This is why Convention of States now is critical. I mentioned that in my last week's show. Go back and see that if you're interested in what the Convention of States are. So those of you that are still with me, I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray for this country. If you have things that you want to pray for and you want to type in the chat, or you just want to pray for yourself or to yourself, on the screen or privately, that's fine. Article 5 is our last hope. I see that, Martha. Thank you. Dear God, we thank you for this opportunity to assemble here as a community, as of investors. We are here in America, and we have this opportunity that you have given us to take what you've given us in the financial realm and to grow it and to use it for good. We don't just say, let's do good in America. We want to be the good that is done in America. And I want to help, as their portfolio manager and educator, these people to grow what you've given them so that we can give back to this country, to our neighbor, to those around the world, and help those who have less than we do, that are not as fortunate as we are in this country. I pray that for those that are in office, that they recognize the division and the current state of this nation and the importance to come together and to not let acrimony reign, to put aside the differences and come to legislation that is helpful for this country. We pray for individuals, for all of us here, to be more humble and truthful. God loves humility and truth. We know that. Can't have too much of that, folks. And finally, I pray for everyone on this call that we use this opportunity, maybe as we sign off the show tonight, to pray for this country, for our families, for our neighbors, that maybe we don't even know who they are. Maybe we go over and shake hands and say, hi, I live here. I'm an American. Who are you? How are you? We thank you and give you praise. Amen. It's Thursday, May 6th, live from Nashville. I'm Charles Brown. We thank you for being part of tonight's broadcast. Hope to see you next week. God bless you, and God bless America.